Hey Duncan, it's Yanni here. How you doing? Got 1 week to go to finish this, man, so let's pop this one in the can and let's move on to dialogue next week, okay? Just wanted to give you a bit of feedback. Do this thing on video because I'm terrible at typing. Yeah, I had a look at your shot. Really like the idea. There's some really nice stuff here on, just that change on attitude, and it's a very nice positive and negative type of shot, so I really like the accent there. The things that jump out at me a little bit on what you've got right now is especially when Stu's making notes here, kind of like in frame 37, the pose kind of like really, really, really goes down into what it is that they're writing, and they're kind of like writing down here. It might be an idea that if you can actually spread that spacing out a little bit more, so we get a bit more of the idea that the pad is actually, instead of being down here, it's a bit more over here because there's no one really who's actually, looking around, so there's no reason to kind of like right nervously so close to the body, and I think that just clears the area that's below the head on frame 34 just a little bit better, and you can keep that staging there. Although you've got, kind of like that pulling out afterwards, I still think that it would work fairly well if you just keep that a bit clearer like that. And one of the things that you can do in this gesture that you've got in frame 47, 48, is that you can have a bit more of a swing to the arm. So coming from frame 37, you can add a bit more drag there, and I'd actually flick the wrist out a little bit. So when he looks down, it's not so parallel to camera, but it just swings out a little bit more like that. So by the time you get to frame 66, just instead of having that notepad like that, just have it tilted a bit more towards screen left, and that way you can give it a bit of a drag, but nice on having that follow through so that it kind of like goes and it comes back. But I think you could just stage that just a little bit better. One thing that jumps out at me a bit is, that's fine. You might want a bit of a moving hold from frame 51 to frame. Ooh, that's quite long. 74, because the hand that's up in the air is just a bit dead to an extent, and I know that we don't want to draw attention to this area here, but it might be something as easy as the hands like that, and instead of having it perfectly in the same space, just have it tweening very slowly over a couple of frames. So it just moves ever so slightly. I mean, the pose can be exactly in the same space, but just let it drift a little bit, and then when the hand relaxes, it continues into that second motion. Okay, so keeping kind of like that same little detail, but just not letting it go completely dead as well, so that our attention stays in the right place. And then when comes over into the next frame over here, there's I'd actually arc track the elbow that's holding the clipboard from frame 84 81, sorry, to frame 115, because there's a bit of a dip in the elbow along that. You might want that movement to be again smoother, so plan some arcs there, and again remember to leave drag, especially on everything that's going. Let the because everything's kind of like turning roughly at the same time, so if you want the body to turn, it's almost like let the foot fall first, let the foot drag the hips, and then let the arm go last, if you like, because that way, when the foot drops, the rest of the body drops. You add just a little bit of a dip in the hips at that moment and make the body turn, leaving the arm last. So that way, the movement's just a little bit broken up, because I think that in that gesture, when he turns around to look at the other cake, everything's kind of like happening at the beginning at the same time. And then when you come up into that rejection there, again, look at the arc that the elbow, now that's holding the pen, is doing between frames 94 to 101. There's a bit of a pop there as well. And you'd want to, maybe just, do an arc which is slightly more inside here. So really, really, really subtle stuff. Just a little bit of a C like that so it doesn't dip that much. And then when it comes over to frame 115, that pose there, whether it's the key forward or the keys, whether it's 114 or 116, where your key is, that looks ever so slightly out of balance because I can't really see where the weight is actually distributed on that foot because both feet are actually on their tips like that, okay? And although he's going to drop his weight down into that pose over there, you don't really see that there's a transfer of the weight from left to right. He's kind of like completely out of balance and he doesn't catch his weight into balance and there's a change of shape, but you kind of like go up and go vertically straight down to frame 122. So have a look at the hips there and make sure that you've got just a little bump as he goes up like that. You can also enhance this by having a look at the hips themselves and making sure that when he stretches up, the leg that's straight, the hip drops to the foot which is not straight. So the one that lifts the weight up counterlevers the actual hips down like that, and I think you've got it the other way around here. And so when he goes to step forward, that slide that he does on the foot, that's really, really, really a rotation there. I think you could almost do it as a proper kind of like step. I think it might look better that the foot that's coming forward in frame 127, it actually comes with the heel first and does a small step back, almost like the sneak that those in the animated survival kit. Just have the foot stretch out but with the heel first instead of the tip, and then you can get a much better sense of a transfer of weight because the heel drops in frame 134 and make him take a step, 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 step like that. Much better. I'd almost say that I think there's something odd with the hips there, that he's doing lots and lots and lots of little steps, but there isn't kind of like a bit of an adjustment with the hips. I think they need to kind of like move around either a little bit faster. I'm not too sure what's going on there, but those little steps forward just feel like they don't have enough weight on them. Now when he comes down and he touches the thing here, I think you can delay this hand a little bit more. So almost like in a frame 154, you can do the anticipation of the pen coming up. Maybe tilt the head back a little bit more than what you have it there so it doesn't intersect with the shoulder at frame 154. And then when you come down it tap it. Just do the tap a bit softer like that and you see it. Let's see if my hand I can actually come into shot. So when it goes dunk, there's a bit more of a little arc on the actual cake. Oh, sorry, not on the actual cake, on the actual pen as he comes down. And it's more in and out, kind of like on the same arc. So it's a bit more delicate the way that it comes in instead of kind of like coming down in the other direction. I think that that might kind of like help you. So that gesture in frame touches down with the pen on frame 169, and then when it comes up, I'd give it like another 10-12 frames for it to come back, and I'd also already start the gesture kind of like coming back a little bit because it's kind of like it's expected that this isn't going to be good. It's kind of like bit more of a gesture there of disgust or disappointment. And then when he shifts off in frame 190, that seems a bit strange as well. And I think it's because everything is so stuck together, because you've got the hand with the clipboard, and you've got the other hand all kind of like stuck together, in the same space. And that clipboard really covers up a lot of the actual gestures that he's doing with the actual head. It's almost like I think you might be able to keep it very much in the pose that you have on frame 176 and keep the elbow out. and keeping that elbow further out instead of bringing it into the body might give you just a little bit more space to lower that clipboard down and get it out of the way for all the gestures that you're doing there. The finishing gesture there is great, but I don't think you're transferring the weight on frame 220. So in frame 220, he's kind of like going up, and he's coming back down, but the feet are perfectly, they haven't changed at all. So if you change that, you might want to add either just a little side step with one of the feet, or you might want to move the heels so that it looks like he's adjusting his weight, and that would also come through in the hips as well. Really look at those hips, because there's something there around frame 120 and then going into frame 128. That movement there isn't quite working with the feet, so you need to kind of like have a look at that. And then another thing that I'd say as well is when you finish this shot and frame the last couple of frames, so just before about, yeah, when you get to frame 238, the eyes are looking right to a side of screen. We can hardly see them. Rotate the head round a little bit and make sure that we can see both eyes perfectly, and that they're not blinking or not overly stretched, but they have more of a neutral pose so that we can see the eyes as well. And also lift the clipboard a little bit up and get that eye line between the clipboard and the eyes just a little bit stronger. Okay? Well, cool, man. Great work. I've blabbled on a bit way too much, but cool. I hope you'll get to the end of this week and we'll have a great shot by the end of it, okay? Best of luck, man, okay? See you soon. Bye.